All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Now, check out Pig and a Pickle. They've got two locations there in Emeryville and in Corte Madera. And they're open 7 days a week in Marin from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. They're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Well, the 49ers made an interesting move going into last weekend's NFL draft. And that was they restructured Christian McCaffrey, their star running back, restructured his deal and obviously gained cap savings this year for that effort and probably gave him a few dollars of more guaranteed money and maybe even extended out his deal. And the result of them restructuring Christian McCaffrey's contract is the 49ers now have $10.9 million currently under the NFL salary cap. Now, they do need to sign the rookie class, and a lot of people speculated that it could have been something as simple as that. But they also have a extension of Nick Bosa most likely coming up this summer, I would imagine. And that move right there should create more than enough room to sign all of their rookies that they have this year. So why exactly did the Niners restructure Christian McCaffrey's deal? Well, going into the draft, I thought it was a very good chance that maybe they were restructuring to facilitate a trade, maybe of Trey Lance, maybe of Brandon Ayuk. Maybe they were going to go trade for a veteran player like the Eagles did, picking up DeAndre Swift from the Lions during the draft. But that kind of trade never materialized on draft day, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. And so the 49ers currently sit with $10.9 million of available cap room. What are they going to do with that $10.9 million? Well, if you look at the 49ers roster, it's a pretty stacked roster. I mean, they don't have a lot of needs. They really don't. They're loaded at linebacker. They're loaded at wide receiver, incredibly deep at running back, a lot of bodies on the offensive line. If there's one area where they look a little naked, it's on the defensive line, where they lost close to 700 snaps when Jordan Willis, Samson Ebukam, and Charles Omenihu walked out the door. And you look at that front line, the Niners have prioritized building that front line into a monster. And look what it is. You got Hargrave, Javon Hargrave, and Eric Armstead inside. You got Bosa outside. So the question is, who starts at that defensive end spot opposite Nick Bosa? And this is not a throwaway position. This is absolutely integral to having a big-time line. If you wind up with somebody who really is a lesser player, they're just going to slide everything towards Nick Bosa. He's going to get chipped by running backs more times than not. He's going to get combo blocked, and they're just going to let that defensive end on the other side work one-on-one basically all season long. So I think this player needs to be a significant player. Now, who could it be? What are the internal options? The internal options are go with Drake Jackson in year 2, which I think is probably your best option, to be honest, because Drake has got a lot of talent. There's no question in my mind that he is a starting caliber defensive end. He needs to add more strength. He needs to just get stronger and better technique, better get off, but mostly just needs to get stronger in that upper body. He's got a great knack to rush the passer, but we also saw him inactive late in the year because, the 49ers had a numbers game up front, and he was the guy who was squeezed out. Then you got Robert Beal, the draft choice from Georgia, who, according to Kirby Smart, if you just want to put this guy in the 9 technique and let him set the edge against the run and burn the edge as a pass rusher the rest of the time, that he can do that. And that's what he does best. He doesn't drop into coverage well. He doesn't backpedal well. Some guys don't have that ability to, play effectively going forward or going backward. And Beal is a guy who, according to Kirby Smart at least, is far, far better going forward, and his tape kind of shows that. Then the Niners signed 2 free agents, Cleveland Farrell and Austin Bryant. Farrell has got a great work ethic to him for sure and has a great motor. and is an improving football player, but he only has 10 sacks in 4 seasons. He really has not gotten it done opposite Max Crosby. And you could say that Farrell has been a very disappointing top 5 draft choice. Now, I expect him to play better football with the Niners than he did with the Raiders, simply because Arden Key did, and Mo Hurst looked better in a Niner uniform. And it's just, when you get on a better line in a winning organization that does things the right way, your production tends to ramp up. So I expect Farrell to be better than he was with the Raiders, but still not good enough to really give that front line or offensive coordinators are not staying up late worrying about Cleveland Farrell. And I don't even believe they're worrying that much about Austin Bryant. I like Austin Bryant. I like Cleveland Farrell. But those guys are going to play in a rotation. In my opinion, the Niners restructured the Christian McCaffrey contract and created, almost $11 million in cap room because they either are going to go for an edge rusher in a trade or they're going to acquire an edge rusher in free agency. The NFL salary cap is set this year at $224 million, $224.8 million to be exact. And today, May 2nd, is the day that free agents that you sign from this point forward do not count against the compensatory pick formula that the NFL has established for competitive balance reasons. And the Niners live by this formula. They've done an incredible job at being very disciplined where the formula benefits them. So if they want to go sign a free agent, edge rusher, as of today, it will not count against next year's compensatory draft pick formula. And I think that's a vital cog. I think that's a key factor for the 49ers for sure. So who's out there? Who could they get? Well, the Commanders, have Chase Young, who they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. They also have Montez Sweat. Both those guys are set to be free agents at the end of the year. Chase Young's coming off injuries, has a big price tag, and we don't know exactly what he is. He's clearly not the player that he was coming out of Ohio State. Montez Sweat, on the other hand, has been one of the NFL's most reliable defensive ends. He's had 5+ sacks in every season that he's played. He gets a lot of pressure on the quarterback. He's been healthy. Because he was picked later, he doesn't make as much money. So to me, if you could trade for a Montez Sweat, I would totally be willing to do that. I think he's a player that absolutely would be a phenomenal addition. Why? Because he's enormously talented. He's got experience. He's been healthy. He's had success. And let's be honest, he's a free agent at the end of the year. Now, that's the downside in trading for him. You're only getting 1 year of him before he tests the free agent market. But you're also getting the season where he has to fire a huge effort if he's going to make a big salary. So you got a motivated Montez Sweat. So to me, that would be option number one. Despite the fact there's other guys you can sign and give up nothing in return, if you can get Montez Sweat out of Washington, I think that would be option number one. But then you say, well, what does the free agent market look like? And even though it's May the 2nd, the free agent market has been badly picked over almost across the board, except in one area. That's right, the edge rusher market, which is still absolutely bountiful with all kinds of attractive options. Let's review who's still out there. If you want Leonard Floyd, who to me is one of my favorite defensive ends that's available this offseason. Big-time player at Georgia, comes burning off the edge, showed it with the Bears, showed it even more so when he was paired opposite Von Miller and Aaron Donald on that Ram line. Leonard Floyd has been remarkably consistent throughout his career. He also was kind of a late bloomer. I think the mileage on his body is not as great as some of these other guys, and I'd be very interested in Montez Sweat as a trade, but I'd be very interested in Leonard Floyd in a free agent signing. But he's not the only one, not even close. Jadeveon Clowney's out there. Very accomplished pass rusher in his own right. Frank Clark is out there. Now, Frank Clark's had problems off the field and may run a little hot and may not be a fit for the Niner locker room, depending on how they view him. He had a lot of problems at Michigan, and, he's just a guy that runs a little hot. and I don't know if they're going to go in that direction. Then there's Yannick Ngakoue. Ngakwe's had, I believe, double-digit sacks 4 years in a row. He is a very good sack man off the edge. Now, these guys, the nice thing about Clark and Ngakoue, Clowney, Leonard Floyd, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, all those guys are in the prime of their career. So you're getting a player that's absolutely in the prime years of their NFL life. But there are 3 veteran options. There are probably more than 3, but there's 3 veteran options that really stand out to me. Jason Pierre-Paul. Played for the Ravens last year. It wasn't that long ago that Pierre-Paul was having a monster year and helping lead the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to a Super Bowl victory over the Chiefs. Pierre-Paul's out there. He's in his mid-30s. Justin Houston, who has been around the block in Indy and Baltimore. He has floated around. Another guy from the University of Georgia once upon a time. He's out there if you want to sign him. Melvin Ingram's an interesting name. The former Steeler, the former Dolphin, the former Charger. Niners have always had a fondness, it seems like, for the South Carolina players. Ingram was a tremendous player when he played at South Carolina. So what exactly did the restructure of McCaffrey mean? Well, we don't know for sure, but we do know the result of it made it so the 49ers are now nearly $11 million under the cap, 10.9. They'll be able to restructure somebody else to sign their rookies later on this summer. So who is that money earmarked for? What is that money earmarked for? I find it really hard to believe that the Niners are going to let 700 snaps walk out the door in Willis, Ebukam, and Amenahue and replace it with Austin Bryant, Cleveland Farrell, and Robert Beal. I don't. To me, that's definitely a step down across the board. Beal's got a lot of talent. Farrell, I think, is really good against the run. Austin Bryant can play in a rotation. But to me, they're not as good as Jordan Willis, Samson Ebukam, and Charles Amenahue, the 3 defensive ends that the Niners just lost. So what do the Niners have planned? All I got to say is there's a burgeoning, continuing edge rusher market. There's a lot of good options out there. When you look at the Niner depth chart, that is their primary need. They're in their Super Bowl window right now. They believe that heating up that spot on the quarterback is absolutely essential. You look at the Niners this year, they said goodbye to Jimmy Ward, they said goodbye to Emmanuel Mosley, and they've got a very young developmental secondary. How are you going to help a young developmental secondary? By having a big-time rush. And the first move was getting Javon Hargrave, but maybe the final move to the puzzle is either trading for a Sweat, trading for a Chase Young, trading for a veteran edge rusher, or signing one in free agency and using some of that McCaffrey newfound cap room to squeeze that defensive end in. If the Niners get a Leonard Floyd, if they get a Jadeveon Clowney, they get a Frank Clark, they get a Yannick Ngakoue, they get somebody like that, they're right there nose to nose with the Eagles for the best team in the NFC. If they don't, it's going to be a projection as to what the Niner defensive line is going to look like this year, and it will be an unknown. I'm not saying it won't work out, because I got a lot of faith in Drake Jackson. I really do. And Robert Beal's film looks tremendous. But Drake needed to add some upper body weight, was inactive a bunch at the end of the year. Beal needs to he's a rookie who's just, going up against NFL tackles for the first time. I really think they need to go get a significant piece at edge rusher. And it really is, in many ways, the final piece to their puzzle. But so if you ask me, why did the Niners clear $10.9 million by restructuring Christian McCaffrey? Why did they create that salary cap room? I would say there's no doubt in my mind it's to pursue, in some capacity, a veteran edge rusher. Now the question is, which one do they get? If it was up to me, Montez Sweat would be my first choice. Leonard Floyd would be my second choice. I would say Yannick Ngakoue would be my third choice. But all those guys that I mentioned are viable options and would add quite a bit to their outside pass rush. All right, hope you enjoyed our 49er video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Check them out in Corte Madera, open 7 days a week, or Emeryville. And thanks to all of you for supporting, The Krug Show on YouTube.